All right, welcome everyone to Couch Potato Diary. My name is Peter Klein. Thank you very much for hanging out today. Gonna get to a lot of stuff on this show. We got a ton of wrestling to get to with a big weekend coming up. We got some UFC to talk about as well. We got Blue Jays, Toxic asking in the chat about Shane Bieber, but it is mock draft season in fantasy football. And so today, gonna kick the stream off with a mock draft that I did. Again, having some trouble doing these live. So I am here. We can chat about it in the chat if you want, but this was previously recorded, and we will get to the live stuff here with the actual light behind me and everything in a little bit. So enjoy this mock draft. And if you have any questions, send them in the chat, and we'll get going with the live stuff in just a little bit. All right. Welcome, everyone. We are doing another mock draft here today. This one now from the second spot in a 12-team half-point, or I guess half PPR. My name is Peter Klein. Thank you very much for popping in, doing a mock draft for every spot in a 12-team round, and then just doing a couple other ones just to see different formats, try to get a real handle on things. So, Team 1, it is, we put it in the podcast on Monday, or available as a YouTube video wherever you are watching this. Now, let's get into team number 2. So again, 12-team, half-point PPR. Let's get to it. Okay. All right. As we expected, Jamar Chase goes 1. That is the pick that we made in the last one. So let's see now, when we go running back, how do we like our team? I'm a little worried about Saquon's usage from last year and what it means this year, but let's see how it plays out when we get Saquon Barkley with that second overall spot. So with team number 1, we went with running back, I guess, or we went wide receiver first, and then went running back right after. I'm interested to see what our lineup looks like right now. Pretty balanced first round. Barkley, then Bijan, CeeDee Lamb, Jahmyr Gibbs, Justin Jefferson, Derrick Henry, and Ashton Genty. So clearly, Sleeper not listening to my overvalued players piece at all. Then Amon-Ra St. Brown, Nico Collins, Christian McCaffrey, the back part of round number 1, with Malik Neighbors and Puka Nacua going at the turn. Brian Thomas Jr. after that, A.J. Brown, Devon Achane, our first quarterback off the board with Josh Allen. Then it's Josh Jacobs, Jonathan Taylor, Lamar Jackson, Drake London, and Bucky Irving. So now it's back to us here in the second round, where we have a couple of opportunities here to make a couple picks. Looking at what is available at the moment, Brock Bowers is the number 1 player available based on ADP. I am worried that, like, at that point, you are building in none of the risk that comes with picking a player on that particular team. So I might avoid that one. I like Ladd McConkey and what he is could become with the Chargers, and I think that is going to be a bit more of a pass-happy team. Man, you get to a point pretty quick where it's like, man, I don't love many of these options. But let's see what we look at when we go wide receiver here. So Kyron Williams comes off the board after us. Then it's Brock Bowers. And now it's back around to us. And if we wanted to go tight end, Trey McBride in the 3rd round, we could do that. Chase Brown is available as the running back for the Cincinnati Bengals. Also, there's Tyreek Hill, Jackson Smith-Njigba, T. Higgins, James Cook, and Breece Hall. Then you get into the quarterbacks. Interested at maybe a little Jaden Daniels here. So let's try that. Let's see. When we go running back, wide receiver, quarterback to start, what does the team look like? So we get Jaden Daniels with our 3rd pick. And now coming off the board immediately after us was Trey McBride. Then it was James Cook, a couple wide receivers in T. Higgins and Breece Hall. Team 7 loading up on running backs. They have Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, and Breece Hall. They go Mike Evans in the 4th round. It came back around to them. Chase Brown went to team number 8. Then it was Jalen Hurts, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Hampton, Burrow, Kittle, Walker, Metcalf, kind of funny, former teammates going back-to-back. Garrett Wilson to team number 9. Then Marvin Harrison Jr. You get Evans, McLaurin, Laporta, Kamara. Right before us is Rashee Rice, who was there for us the other day. So now it is back around to us. Top players available: Chuba Hubbard, Devontae Adams, James Conner, DJ Moore, Cortland Sutton, and David Montgomery. So I don't hate a lot of the options here. And the last quarterback available that we feel super comfortable with is Patrick Mahomes. After that, it goes down to a Baker Mayfield. So I don't mind that we went quarterback there. I feel like a lot of the tight ends, there's a couple left that we feel okay about, but I kind of don't mind how this has shaken out right now. So it's Chuba Hubbard, best player available according to ADP, just ahead of Devontae Adams, James Conner, and DJ Moore. Hubbard, I feel like, again, he's going to have good opportunities in an offense that I think is getting better. I'm worried about what the offense looks like with the Rams. I'm kind of out on both wide receivers, to be honest. So the decision that I'm making right now is between James Conner and Chuba Hubbard. I am going to roll the dice that Conner might still be there. The team, like team number one, also went wide receiver, running back, and tight end with their first three. So... but I know Hubbard won't be available, so we'll go Chuba here, and hopefully they go wide receiver. Oh, they go Montgomery and Devontae Adams. So our gamble has paid off. James Conner is still there for us. There's a bunch of wide receivers who are available now. DJ Moore, Cortland Sutton, Devontae Smith, Zay Flowers, Xavier Worthy. For the running backs that are available, it is Trayvon Henderson, RJ Harvey, and Joe Mixon, also Isaiah Pacheco and Aaron Jones in this spot. But I like now that we're going to kind of triple up here and get James Conner. And so I think our running back room feels very solid at this particular time. And now you get a bit of a run on wide receiver. So we don't feel awesome about that because immediately after it is Xavier Worthy, DJ Moore, Cortland Sutton, Devontae Smith, Trayvon Henderson, the first running back kind of ends that. But then it's Flowers again. And the wide receiver run continues. After a couple running backs, it's McMillan, Jamison Williams, Pickens, Hunter, Waddle, Ridley, all them come off the board. So our gamble on a couple running backs there didn't necessarily pay off because now there's not a lot left at wide receiver that I am overly in love with. The wide receivers that are available at this particular time, it is Olave. I'm really worried about him and the offense. Jerry Jeudy, ditto. Roma Dunze, Jalen Addison, Jacoby Myers, and Deebo Samuel. So there's not a lot that's awesome that's available. So I'm going to go now and just lock in our tight end spot. Mark Andrews is available. After Andrews, there is Ingram and Njoku and Tyler Warren. We waited too long yesterday and weren't able to get in on that bit of the action. Actually, there is quite a bit of good depth still available at tight end. So maybe we want to take a shot with a couple of these other guys. Tony Pollard, best running back available. Quinshawn Judkins is also there. Yeah, I'm not loving any of these wide receiver options that could be available at this particular time. God, it might be a reach, but Ricky Pearsall, I'm not hating that one. This feels like way too much of a reach to take him at this time. But I mean, by the time like we do these two picks, comes back around, maybe he's gone already. Because like at that point, yeah, we're going to be down in like the 96, 97, 98 range. So he may not be there. So honestly, probably worth it to take a bit of a shot at wide receiver with Ricky Pearsall. That'll probably be our second one. We are running out of time now, as you've probably figured out. I'm rambling at this point. So let's get a bit of a more solid option at Tony Pollard. Going to get a good chunk of the running back share out there with the Titans. And then it comes back around to us, and we'll take a bit more of a reach type of a pick, and we'll go Ricky Pearsall with the San Francisco 49ers. So definitely more running back strong than we are wide receiver, but we're feeling all right. And now hopefully the tight ends are still available. That's what we're hoping for as this swings back around to us. One tight end has come off in Ingram in all of that time. Mark Andrews does come off as well. So we're going to be, you know what? I don't hate how this played out because David Njoku is right there. I think he is going to be a volume machine this year. I think he's a really good tight end still. And so I'm going to take the big man at tight end, David Njoku. After that, Javonte Williams and Khalil Shakir went. And so now we are in the building up depth kind of mode of this draft. There isn't a whole lot that is jumping out as, oh my gosh, we need to get this. But there's a couple of guys that interest me, a couple of guys who are on my potential breakouts this year, with Keon Coleman being available and Dalton Kincaid, a couple guys on Buffalo that I think can break through this year. So I'm going to gamble that one of them is going to be available on the other side, and I'm going to get Emeka Ibuka from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Rookie wide receiver, going to be the number 2 in an offense that's going to be passing a lot. So we're going to go with we're going to go with Ibuka here, and maybe get a bit of a home run swing with our wide receiver pick. And then hopefully one of the breakouts that we're hoping for swings back around to us. I like the Downs pick that happened right at the top of round number 10. Aside from that, nothing has been devastating. Keon Coleman does go. That was kind of the one. I don't love going 2 tight ends, so I don't know why I included Kincaid in that. Players that are available right now, it is Pittman, who honestly, like, the Daniel Jones news helps him a little bit more than if it was just Richardson. After that, like, we have a couple tight ends again with Kincaid and Pitts. I do really think we need to work on our wide receivers now, but we're getting to the point where, like, we're into kicker ADP and stuff like that. So maybe we just hope that Pittman, there's going to be volume. He's still pretty solid. You have better quarterback play there. We go with that. You could take a lottery ticket with a Rashid Shaheed, or with a Marvin Mims with the Denver Broncos, or Christian Kirk even with Houston. But I think for now, we're going to go Michael Pittman here. Sit in that, so we get back-to-back receivers. So now we are at, we have 4 wide receivers. We have 4 running backs. And we have our tight end and quarterback picks kind of filled out. So now it is just a matter of bringing in players that we think have a bit of an upside. And like the Kincaid one, it's just sitting there. But it feels like a waste to go with a second tight end, because, like, when are we going to be using them? And the waiver wire could present us with a few options. So there's a couple guys who I'm thinking of right now here with 1:30 to go in the pick. Trey Benson, we already have James Conner. Benson, like, I think that's going to be a 2-headed monster out in Arizona. And if either of them get hurt, then we have just locked in what I think is going to be a pretty good offense this year in Arizona. So that's a pretty good option. Also, Jaden Blue. I don't think the offense in Dallas is going to be that great this season, but a lot of people pretty high on his talent. I might play the ADP game and hope that when it swings back around to us, Trey Benson is still going to be there. Although, again, this is one where, like, it feels like a reach because you scroll all the way down and he's right there, right before that cutoff line. But of the two, I'm going to be more upset if I don't get Benson. So let's go Trey Benson, running back for Arizona. And if we happen to luck into a blue, then we luck into a blue. After that, Kincaid goes right away. Pitts goes a couple picks later. Shaheed, CJ Stroud and Caleb Williams, both of them going with the 8th and 9th picks of the 11th round. If those hit at all, that is an absolute steal. Like, those are guys who their talent should outweigh those spots. It is just a matter of can the offensive lines, in both cases, honestly, hold up for them as well. So Blue comes off the board right after the 2 quarterbacks. Then it was Mooney and Eckler. We get into the kickers after Rashid White. That's a really good pick for White in the 12th round. Couple kickers. Ray Davis coming off kind of stings a little bit. That was a handcuff that I wouldn't have mind having. So available right now, Jake Ferguson is the tight end. Jordan Love at quarterback. I think this offense could have a really big year. That might be... I get, like, we already have Daniels, and it feels like a bit of a waste, but there isn't a whole lot that is here on the board that is, like, jumping out to me as you need to pick this right now. Although I am seeing a couple more now. We talked about these running backs yesterday with Braylon Allen and Jerome Ford. I mean, we could pick both. I think both have the opportunity to do some pretty big things this year. Allen, I just think he's good. I think he's just a solid running back in an offense that should be better. And Jerome Ford, I think he is fine. I think he's okay in an offense that's but he is right now the guy there. And I think that he is being overlooked a little bit. So you know what? This has been all about running back depth this entire draft. We're going to go Allen. Chubb goes after us. Jordan Love. That would have given me a little bit of pause because I do think that Green Bay is set for a really good year. And if nothing else, it gives you a trade candidate to kind of work with. But we're going to go with that, and we're going to go Jerome Ford in our spot in the 13th round. It's going to swing back around to us, and we're going to go kicker and defense to put a bow on this one. But I like this team a lot. I think when you look at, well, we'll do the final summary here in a second, but I think I have a good mix of safe and some home run swings at the end that make this a team that I'm comfortable with. So we'll go defense first. We will go Kansas City Chiefs. and then swings back around to us. And at kicker, Will Lutz has been our pick du jour, this year. So we're going to go with that. Some late round ones, just for those interesting. Tyler Algier goes in the last round. So does Adam Thielen, Zach Ertz, Trevor Lawrence. And then with the last pick, it is the Houston Texans. So looking at this now, our starting quarterback is Jaden Daniels. At running back, we have Saquon Barkley and Chuba Hubbard, with James Conner probably in our flex. Starting a wide receiver would be Ladd McConkey and Ricky Pearsall. Our starting tight end would be David Njoku. After that, for depth purposes, we have Tony Pollard, Trey Benson, Braylon Allen, and Jerome Ford. I love how that sets up. You can see where the path to fantasy relevance for all of them is right there. Our depth at wide receiver, it's Igbuka and Pittman, so a little lacking. But I think with Pittman, you get the safety of number one target in an offense that's going to face some down defenses anyway. And Igbuka, someone that I think there's a potential real breakout for him as a rookie. So, like I said, I like the mix of safe and bold that we have on this team. I think I like this squad better than the one from the first overall pick that we did yesterday. So, that's the mock draft for the second round. Keep it locked here. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, and like this video, share it with your friends, and leave a comment. Any picks that I made here that you entirely disagree with, let me know. And we'll be back with the third round, or the mock draft from position number 3, coming out a little bit later. So thank you guys so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
comfortable with you. I feel like
we got some breaking news from the NFL, a trade that should affect a little bit of fantasy football. So we'll start with that. Plus, it is Bieber Day for the Toronto Blue Jays, a signing in the NHL, and we got a ton of wrestling stuff to talk about. A lot has changed just from when we started the stream. Couch Potato Diary Live is going to start right now. All right, welcome everyone. Couch Potato Diary live on a Friday. Generally like to do these as Fights and Football Fridays, but we got some new football news to talk about. Plus, got to talk some Blue Jays on Shane Bieber's day. And we got hockey news. Then we'll get into the wrestling stuff. As we got Forbidden Door, we have NXT Heatwave. I'm all over the place because I had all set up, ready to go. Play the mock draft, be able to and then we'll be good. And then all of a sudden, hey, we got a trade here, we got a this and that and the other thing. It's like, oh my gosh, okay. So a lot has changed. Wee bit scrambled here on the show, but it should be a whole lot of fun hanging out with everybody here today. As always, we are presented by Sea of Dead. It's getting into sweater weather. And so we got the old sea train style. That this is, and it's not just because presented by and all that stuff. Such a comfy sweater. Check it out over at seaofdead403.ca. Some big things coming from Sea of Dead. Can't wait for some of the announcements coming out of there. Also, head over to swiftenergy.gg. Use the code PKPrimetime for that 25% off. We got a marathon wrestling day coming up here. We got a lot of baseball to watch. We got a UFC card at like 6 in the morning, Mountain Time. So there's a lot of things that are going to need your energy. Head over to swiftenergy.gg and use the code PKPrimetime. All right. Deep breaths. I was already amped up for today because it was Shane Bieber Day. And then, like I said, news breaks while we are talking. So a trade that, in terms of the grand NFL, maybe not the most significant, but a trade that certainly affects the fantasy football world. So let's take a look at the newest San Francisco 49ers running back to kick off things today. The San Francisco 49ers, we thought running back situation, okay, they've made a couple of moves. It's going to be Christian McCaffrey and Isaac Guerrero, and that's going to be that. There was a slew of trades the other day as teams whittle down their rosters. The 49ers didn't do it. Okay, this is what it's going to be. And then we get the tweet a few minutes ago. Adam Schefter tweeting out, the Washington Commanders are trading running back Brian Robinson to the San Francisco 49ers in exchange for 2026 sixth round pick, sources tell ESPN. It catches me off guard that this was not necessarily a move that I was expecting expecting either of these teams to be making. And so I think then this is why we say for fantasy football, this is why you don't draft until late in the draft process, because these sorts of things pick up. So I do think that this is going to have some effects fantasy football wise here. Sorry, I'm getting notifications say, okay, is anyone else traded? What's going on with this? But it's just Schefter talking about maybe some of the motivations for San Francisco, saying that a few guys have been banged up in this running back room. And I mean, there is some of that. Like Guerendo's been banged up during training camp. Some of the other guys who they had brought in have been hurt as well. And so this is Deeds saying in the chat, this is a great pickup. It is. Brian Robinson, he's not explosive, big play, gigantic number one running back guy, but he is a solid starting running back in the National Football League. And so from a football standpoint, if you can get that as your backup to Christian McCaffrey in a very running back dependent offense for a sixth round pick, you do that all the time. So, this is where NFL trades, I don't get it. I'm sure there's a money thing involved with this, but this feels like quite the running back sell-off now for Washington. And just to get a sixth round pick for a guy who started games for you last season, it feels a bit underwhelming. So from an NFL standpoint, I don't think this moves the needle a ton. I don't think, oh, now watch out for San Francisco. This is just, you have a much more quality backup and insurance plan if something goes wrong with a Christian McCaffrey, or you want to mix and match a little bit, or you just want to give Christian McCaffrey a little bit more of a breather, a little bit more, again, safety behind him, so you don't have to use him as much, some load management, if you will. So, Deed's saying it'll result in McCaffrey being less banged up throughout the season. That's exactly it. Just instead of 20 touches a day, it's maybe down to 15, and you let Robinson get in there. Or instead of running McCaffrey up into a bunch of 300-pound guys 15 times, maybe you can line him up outside in the slot and have him run a few routes as a receiver. It allows one of the more creative offensive minds in the National Football League to get creative. And you are now not one injury away from there being a big problem on your team. And look, a couple years ago, you would assume they'd be able to absorb some of these injuries with Ayuk, with Deebo Samuel, and McCaffrey, and Kittle, and on and on and on and on and on. But Deebo fallen off, and now, ironically, on his way to Washington. Ayuk is hurt for the first little while of the season, so you don't have the, okay, well, if there's an injury to McCaffrey, we can just bring a little scat back running back in, and we'll be able to absorb that because the rest of the team is awesome. You've lost some of that margin for error, and while I still think Pearsall is going to be fine, and Brandon Ayuk, if and when returns to full health, I think he'll be okay. This just gives you a little bit more of a, okay, we don't necessarily have this abundance of talent that we had before, so we have to insulate ourselves a little bit more. So I think some smart work there from San Francisco. And for Washington, it is surprising to me that this is a move that they felt they needed to make, but they obviously feel comfortable with the running back situation that they have at this particular time with Austin Eckler as their main running back right now. And so I guess they were seeing something that we didn't with Brian Robinson, who I thought, again, I didn't think incredibly talented running back, but I thought he was a fine number one, and they go out and make that move. So what does this mean for fantasy football purposes? Let's take a look at this. I think for Christian McCaffrey, honestly, I don't think it affects how you should view him all that much. Maybe it does limit the ceiling on what he could be from a game in, game out perspective. But as we talked about with Deeds in the chat, this is a player that is more valuable to you getting 15 touches a game for 16 games for fantasy football, because you shouldn't be playing 17, than he is getting 20 touches a game for 5 games and then he gets hurt. So I think while maybe it does, if you have already drafted Christian McCaffrey, because the price is still pretty high, it's probably a first round pick still, you were hoping that maybe there'd be a little bit more upside than this move would indicate, but you are also hoping that he stays on the field for an entire freaking season, and I think this helps out with that. So Christian McCaffrey probably wasn't going to be on a lot of my teams anyway, just based on the injury concerns and the price tag. But does it knock his value down a little bit? I think probably. But does it entirely limit it? Probably not. I think that this is still going to be... I think this is still going to be a very talented running back and still a very well-utilized running back, maybe just in a few different ways. For Brian Robinson, I think it hurts the fantasy value quite a bit. He went from going to be who we presume to be the number one running back option on a pretty good offense to being the number 2 running back option on a pretty good offense. Like, I think it has to take a step back for what you presumed his value to be, just based on volume alone. So I think he goes from being a bit of a sleeper, okay, well, we got a starting running back here, so we can roll with that, to a handcuff very quickly. I think fantasy value-wise, I think this kind of tanks it for Brian Robinson quite a bit. The one that this hurts the most, I think, obviously, is Isaac Guerrero. We did early in the offseason the players that were affected the most by how the offseason went, and he was one that we had on the positive side because they hadn't brought in someone else, so he was going to be the handcuff. Now they've brought in someone else, and it's someone else who was a starting running back on a team that went to the AFC title game a year ago. So that's difficult to deal with if you are Isaac Guerrero. So I think for him, the fantasy value has basically completely tanked. On the Washington side of this, Austin Eckler, I think it's a pretty good bump up in value. I don't know if it's the gigantic, okay, well, now he's the guy, because I think that this was going to be a bit of a committee there anyway, and Robinson was going to get, I think, that the main part of it, and then Eckler was going to have some value. I don't know if Eckler moves up a little bit. The one that I think is actually quite intriguing is Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, a kid that Washington drafted this last offseason. So I think that this is a guy that they obviously saw some potential in, because they went out and made this move. And I don't think they do that if they don't have a bit of a safety net behind. So I think that he is a player that moves up in rankings quite a bit and goes from probably being undrafted, basically. He didn't come up at all in either of the mock drafts we've done so far. But I think that he is a player now that moves into draftable territory if you're looking for some late round flyers there. Chris Rodriguez is another one if you're looking for a late round flyer that maybe he finds his way into a little bit more action out in Washington now. So it wasn't really a running back room that you were expecting to give you a bounty of fantasy goodness anyway. It was more just, well, Robinson's a number 1. It's a pretty good offense. We can go with that and maybe get something mid to late rounds. Now you're just doing that with Austin Eckler and taking a couple flyers on a couple of young players here. Deeds in the chat. Now for Robinson, if McCaffrey gets hurt, it gives him an opportunity behind that line that helps running backs with huge holes. That's the thing, is that, like we're saying, like, this tanks Robinson's fantasy value, and I still stand by I still stand by my comments of 3 minutes ago. But the one thing that it does, to Deeds' point, if that opportunity opens up, Robinson has the opportunity now to be a potential league winner if you're going out and getting that dude. So if you are Brian Robinson, you're feeling like a bad person because you're now hoping for bad things to happen to Christian McCaffrey, which is bad for the National Football League. But this is... It goes from zero opportunity to one of the best opportunities in the league very, very quickly if something bad happens for a Christian McCaffrey. So that's still not, like, I would probably draft him a round or 2 ahead of where I was drafting Guerrero at this particular moment, but I don't think it gets back to where he was going in drafts when we thought he was going to be the starting running back for the Washington Commanders. But an interesting trade, a very, very NFL trade where, yeah, this guy was their starting running back. We went to the title game last year we're in a pretty good spot. I don't think Washington's in a super cap crunch, but yeah, we're in a pretty good spot. So no, we'll trade him for a 6th round pick. No, that seems to check out. Some of these moves in the NFL, man, it pays to have cap space in the National Football League because you can just play. Oh, 5th round pick, yeah, we'll get that. Yeah, we'll just take that. Like it's wild, some of the players that get drafted, and it's just we just don't want the cap hit on our team anymore. So go. Football can be a cruel, cruel world sometimes, but an interesting move here nonetheless. So we're already into the football conversation. If you have any more fantasy football questions, fire them away either in the comments if you're watching this after, or in the chat if you are watching this video live. Also, if you are watching this, if you're seeing this, then you're watching it. Weird thing to say. Anyway, share this video for more great insights like that. But really enjoying doing these. I'm really happy with the content we've been putting out over the last little while. I just wish more of you could see it. So share this video with some people and let them know about all the goodness that is coming from Couch Potato Diary. Let's keep going with the NFL previews. And I come on here. I consider myself a relatively smart human when it comes to talking about football. I know sometimes the and all that can get in the way, but overall, I feel pretty good about the track record of things that we've gotten right compared to what we've gotten wrong and everything like that. But every year, there are a few things that I'm like, you know what? I feel like that is how this thing is going to play out. And I'm 95% there, and then there's just a little bit of a, yeah, but, there's something could not do. So today, this is therapeutic for me. This is just getting it all out there. These are the 5 things that I'm worried I'm wrong about going into this NFL season. One of the first things I was taught in sports radio many, many, many years ago is don't ever say, oh, I don't know. And so that mentality certainly has found its way through into sports talk very aggressively over the last 5-10 years. And so sometimes we just want to come out and make a definitive statement. This is how this situation is going to go. And I know, like, I can come on here, I can talk very, very quickly, and I can make it really seem, I can throw out a couple of numbers that a lot of people will recognize, some people won't, but I'll say it very quickly and very impactfully, and it's coming from a large person on here, so it must be having some impact behind it. But there's still some things I'm worried I'm wrong about. So today, we're going to go through the top 5 things I'm worried I'm wrong about going into this NFL season. Honorable mention to the Green Bay Packers having a breakout season this year. I think that with Jordan Love having a full season of health and still having a very talented wide receiver room and a very good running back to work with, I feel like there is a big breakout coming. But if the defensive improvements that I thought I saw from a season ago aren't necessarily there, or if there's an injury problem for Jordan Love or some of the talent, because there have been some losses there as well, injury-wise, at receiver in Green Bay, if Golden doesn't help replace a few of those things, then maybe that breakout isn't coming. So honorable mention to Green Bay there. But my number 5 thing I'm worried I'm wrong about is the Bengals can't repeat last year's wild offensive production. Last year, the Cincinnati Bengals for fantasy football were an absolute goldmine on both sides because offensively, it was one of the great offensive teams we've ever seen. Joe Burrow putting up video game numbers. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Brown, all of them, Chase Brown, sorry, all of them, just complete dominance in the fantasy football landscape. And they had a defense that allowed everybody to eat against them. They were glorious. I have multiple concerns when it comes to this. A, that feels just like a difficult way to live in the National Football League. And so they made some moves to try to help this defense out, but obviously the situation with Hendrickson, not ideal. Even the weird holdout thing with Shamar Stewart, the kid they drafted in the first round, seems a little weird. And because they were so focused on that, they weren't focusing on the fact that their meal ticket, their number 1 quarterback, is running for his life more often than he's not behind a very bad offensive line. I don't think they made the necessary adjustments on that O-line. It's great. You got Chase and you got Higgins to throw the ball to. I think Brown's going to have a good year as a running back, but I just don't think that they are going to be able to have one of like the all-time great offensive seasons in the NFL in back-to-back years, given the state of that offensive line. I think you're just asking too much of Joe Burrow. So that is kind of my take. My concern and where I'm worried I'm wrong about is just as the kids would say, Joe Burrow is him. Like he is very good at this whole quarterbacking thing, and I am banking on something not happening that we just saw last season. Like this isn't I think there's going to be a breakout or whatever. It's like I think that thing that we saw 17 times, I think that's a lie. That's where I get a little bit of a concern with, is that I am going against something that has happened already. And so to say it's not going to happen again, I just get a little bit of a, Am I there on that one? We'll see. So that's the number 5 thing that I'm worried I'm wrong about. Number 4 is the fall off in Detroit. I think that the Lions coaching staff, you lost a lot of brain power this year. But I think Ragnow going down on the offensive line, and if you've listened to all the previews so far, and you took a shot every time that I mentioned Ragnow's injury, I'm sorry for your loss, because I've brought it up a lot, but I think it's a big deal. This is a team that has Super Bowl aspirations, and their Pro Bowl center in the middle of the offseason, not even in the middle of the offseason, 3/4 of the way through the offseason, after they would have had an opportunity to draft or go out and sign someone in free agency, he just up and called it quits. And not saying anything negative about him, because it's his body, it's his life. Go out and do that thing. If you think that you are too beat up or too whatever to continue to play this sport, then don't do that. So I have no ill will against him. I am just saying I think that's a big loss on the interior of an offense with a quarterback who kind of needs everything to be perfect to get these things going. And it's been perfect for a couple of years and it has worked. I just feel like it's too many things going against them this year to have this play out the way that it did the last couple of seasons. Where I'm worried I'm wrong is, again, we've just seen them be good before. And you could have said a lot of these same things about Philadelphia. So much of what they do is based on having one of the best offensive lines in the league. They have a play that teams have tried to get banned based off of shoving the center basically forward with the quarterback behind him. And then they lost one of the best centers of all time. And they just kept running, and then they won the Super Bowl. So I'm worried that the Lions have recovered from this way better than I thought. The, I guess, high-level play that they had on the offensive side wasn't just very good play calling, and more on the Jimmies and Joes than the X's and O's coming from Ben Johnson. And then this team steps up and still finds a way to be very good. So that's where I'm concerned I am wrong there. I don't think I am, but that is the one that I'm concerned I am wrong on. At number 3, my worry is that the upgrades the Minnesota Vikings made will not be able to offset the change at quarterback if JJ McCarthy isn't very good. Because right now, I think it is. I think that they have the best receiver in the league. I think they have a pretty good running back room. I think they have a great offensive line, and I think they have a very talented defense and just an incredibly well-coached football team. The only thing you don't love going into this season about the Minnesota Vikings is the quarterback spot. And it's not that they have a bad quarterback, it's just they have one we haven't seen before. My thought is that going into last season, we thought they had a bad quarterback in Sam Darnold. All this, oh, well, Sam Darnold's actually an upgrade over Geno Smith out in Seattle, da-da-da-da-da. We weren't saying that 12 months ago. We were talking about how this is kind of the last chance, and this guy would have been keeping the seat warm if J.J. McCarthy hadn't got hurt. So an offensive scheme that was able to get the most out of a quarterback that was seeing ghosts in some other spots now gets this just fresh bit of clay to mold any way they want, with a better roster around than what they had a season ago, while still having all the great minds that led them that way. I am really, really high on the Minnesota Vikings going into this season. And I mean, it's obvious where this falls apart, is that JJ McCarthy is more Will Levis than he is rookie Joe Flacco. I don't know why that's the pull I made, but you know what I mean, where that year Flacco and Ryan, as rookies, took their teams to the playoffs and went really well. The concern is that he is just impossibly bad and does irreparable damage to the offense in a way where they can't overcome it. Like that one, that's, again, these first 3, it's pretty easy straight lines to see where it could go wrong. This one, it's obvious. It is just like, okay, well, if he sucks, then they suck. Like, there's just no working around that, even if they have a great roster around it. I think they've insulated it enough that he's going to be fine, but I'm a little worried about that one there. At number 2, the thing I am the second most worried about in the National Football League, we'll get to in just a second. But a reminder that everything is always changing around Couch Potato Diary, so follow me on social media. I am at Primetime Klein on Twitter, X, Twitter or X, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, Threads, all of it. Check me out over at Primetime Klein. The thing that I am worried about, number 2 on the list, is the offensive breakout that I am presuming will come for the Kansas City Chiefs. This one has a lot to do with fantasy football. I mean, look, all of these have something to do with fantasy football, right? Like, looking at the Bengals situation, I'm a little bit lower on Burrow than others. I'm a little bit lower on Chase than others. I'm quite a bit lower on Higgins than other. I'm still there on Brown a little bit, but still a little bit lower on all of them. And if I'm wrong, then those are some pretty big misses to have. Same thing with Detroit. I'm low. Jahmyr Gibbs was one of my more overvalued players in fantasy football this season. I'm not touching Jared Goff. I think Jamison Williams is a fantastic talent, and just keeper-wise, I have him locked in on a couple of different rosters, but I have some concerns about him. Amon-Ra St. Brown, it's volume. He's going to be fine, but I have some worries about that. And again, if I am wrong, then those are some pretty big misses that I'm having. While on the Minnesota side, like, again, Justin Jefferson, I have him as the best receiver in football. And I think the offense is still going to be good enough that when Jalen Addison comes back, he's going to be a very valuable member of that roster. Aaron Jones, I think, is going to be good. So again, if McCarthy is just so bad that none of those are usable, then that's a pretty big whiff. And now in Kansas City, I think I'm higher on a lot of these options than a lot of people are. And the main thing about it is Rashee Rice. I know that there is a number 1 receiver there. I understand that there are some concerns, but I think you look at how well he was starting to play last season, and I know, like, it wasn't perfect, but when you look at how young this kid is, the gifts that he has, and what he was starting to show, if you just extrapolate that over a 17-game season, then maybe it's not number 1 wide receiver numbers. But if you factor in any improvement at all, because the kid is still young and really good and in one of the best offensive systems the National Football League's ever seen, then I think you can really see where a number 1 receiver comes out there. And then when you look at the rest of the roster, you have him as a number 1, if you believe that, which I do. You have Xavier Worthy, who's not a number 1. Despite what Taylor Swift could be running around celebrating with, he's not a number 1. So that just put him in a bad spot last season. What he can be, though, is big over-the-top guy. And so if you are focusing your underneath on Rashee Rice, and a safety has an eye down there, then all of a sudden Xavier Worthy is just blowing the top off your defense. Well, that's when Patrick Mahomes in this offense really takes it to another level. And then you have Hollywood Brown as a number 3, as an underneath guy, and Travis Kelce, who I am still thinking there's going to be some improvements on from last season. I think that there is going to be a lot of weapons that Mahomes has to choose from. And I think Pacheco is better than a lot of people are assuming that he's going to be, based off of seeing him after injury last season. So I am very high on what Kansas City still can be as an offense. The reason I'm worried I'm wrong is that I've been really high on this group, and you can get infatuated with the talent for the last few years. And the fact is, it has been a mid-offense for the last couple of years. Now, they've gotten to Super Bowls. They've won Super Bowls in the past couple of years because the defense is that damn good. But I think from a fantasy perspective, I am really high on a lot of these guys. We did the mock draft from the number 1 overall spot, and obviously I didn't take Mahomes number 1 overall, but we ended up with a Mahomes and Rice stack to go along with Jamar Chase as our number 1 wide receiver. And so with that, I think pretty highly of what Patrick Mahomes in this offense can do. And I think that we are going to see that at a high level this year. But if they are just dink and dunk, let's just survive and advance and move on, then that's going to be a pretty big whiff on my part. And the number 1 thing that I am worried about for the upcoming NFL season, worried I'm wrong about for the upcoming NFL season, is the improvements I think are coming for the New York Jets. I don't have as much baked in from a fantasy standpoint on these guys. This one is more from a wagering standpoint and from a predictions point of view. But still, I think that this offense and this team, this is still the roster, basically, that people were excited about 12 months ago to see how Aaron Rodgers would do with this team. And I didn't think Aaron Rodgers was very good, and he showed that he wasn't. And everyone just remembers that last game when he was stat hunting to try to get the touchdown mark and forgets just how miserable this season was. I think you have a coach that is going to hold people accountable, which was desperately needed out there. And I believe in the Justin Fields experiment with the New York Jets. I believe that there is a talented quarterback there. I get it hasn't looked awesome in preseason games, and the reports coming out of training camp and the joint practices haven't been awesome. So that's, again, this is an easy one to figure out where this prediction goes wrong. It's that he's just bad. You know, like this offense, the problems, maybe it wasn't all Aaron Rodgers, but this kid isn't good enough to fix whatever those problems were. So that's where I'm worried that I am wrong. But I've just, again, I've brought this team up on basically every preview show. I think people are just forgetting how hyped we were about what they could be last year and how the problems that were there were easily fixable, and I believe have now been fixed. So I just feel like there is a much better season coming for the New York Jets than people are anticipating. But again, if I'm wrong on this one, then this is going to be one of the worst teams in football, and I'm going to have taken a pretty big swing and a miss on this one. So those are the things that I am the most worried about going into the NFL season. Let me know either in the chat if you're watching this live or in the comments below after the fact. If you think I'm out to lunch on any of these, if you think, oh yeah, you're already wrong on this, how dare you? Or what are you worried that you're wrong about? Like a take that you have that's like, you know what, I believe this, but in the back of my mind, ooh, don't love that. Let me know in the comments section. If you missed any of the live stream or just want to take Couch Potato Diary with you, wherever you go, check us out on podcast. We are available on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, Amazon, all the other ones. Wherever you get your podcasts, we're there. So check us out in podcast form. Earlier on, when we were playing the mock draft on the live stream, Deeds asked predictions for Shane Bieber tonight. I'm so excited. I can't wait. Let's get into some Shane Bieber talk on the program today. Next weekend is Labor Day. This weekend, it's Bieber Day, as Shane Bieber makes his Blue Jays debut tonight against the Marlins of Miami. And this has obviously been a tremendous, out of nowhere, brilliant season from the Toronto Blue Jays. And one of the most fun seasons you could have as a Blue Jays fan in a really, really, really long time. That being said, there's just a different feel to it. For me, anyway, today. I don't know about the rest of you, but for me, there's a different feel to today. And I think I've said before, I need to very much temper my expectations. I jokingly put in the Twitch chat when Toxic asked about the Biebs. We got a Deeds, we got a Biebs here. But about the Biebs stat line for tonight, I was like 9 innings, no hits, 27 strikeouts. And it feels like at times that's basically what I am expecting. I have been penciling this guy in as a potential playoff starter for the Blue Jays since we got the notification that Kyle Stevens was on his way to Cleveland for that dude. And I am beyond excited to see this and what it turns into. And so the reason for the excitement is, I mean, it's obvious, right? Like, if this guy is what we think he can be still, then this is a game changer for the Toronto Blue Jays, not only during the regular season, but also for postseason play and how you view their playoff odds and their odds of working their way through the postseason potentially to a pennant and beyond. He can be that type of a game changer for this Blue Jays team. So I want to see where he is at. And even if it's not great where he is at tonight, and it is not cause for concern or anything like that. It is a first start in the big leagues after having a pretty huge surgery and something to work through. But also, and with all due respect to the Blue Jays pitchers that they have had over the last decade or so, there's just a different feel when it's an ace on the mound. And Bieber can still be that guy. Like, I remember some pretty blah years when Roy Halladay was the Blue Jays pitcher. But Roy Halladay's starts were not to be missed because it had a different feel to it. And the Blue Jays have had good pitchers since then, right? Like Stroman was very good with the Blue Jays. Aaron Sanchez got to that point, I think, with Toronto. You kind of thought you were going to get that with R.A. Dickey, and then you didn't. And then by the time you did get it again, you had been spurned to the point where you didn't think you were going to get it, and you just couldn't appreciate it anyway. But that's another story for another day. And then David Price. Like, he is the most talented pitcher the Blue Jays have had since then. You kind of got a bit of that just because it was like, man, I don't know how many months I'm going to see David Price in a Blue Jays uniform for. So let's roll with this one, bad boy. Let's just go. And so there was a bit of it with that. And then even like Robbie Ray winning the Cy Young, it was so much of a, wait, is this really happening? That you didn't necessarily believe it. And so there's just a different feel. And baseball is the only sport where you can get this, where you have a guy who can come in every fifth day and change the feel of a game so much. So it's cool to have that feeling again for the Blue Jays. As far as what to expect tonight, my official prediction is, we'll say 4 innings, 3 hits, 2 walks, and 6 strikeouts. And we'll say 2 runs. 2 runs, 4 innings, 3 hits, couple walks, 6 strikeouts. So the stuff is good. Maybe it's a little all over the place. We got some stuff to work on, but then you can let the bullpen take it the rest of the way. I just hope the offense is there because this has been a team that struggled the last few games. And honestly, since Colorado, I think I saw the stat, they are 7-12 in their last 19 games against teams not named the Colorado Rockies, which still means that they're 10-12 in their last 22 in general. And that's not a first place ball club by any stretch of the imagination. So the offense has to pick it up tonight. I don't know. I haven't seen any updates on if Vladdy is ready to go. By the time you're watching this, maybe you will know. But while we're doing this live, I don't know. But the being at home, I think, is going to help. And I think they've also picked a pretty good spot for Bieber here. The Marlins are not one of the most potent offenses in Major League Baseball. The home atmosphere is going to be a buzz tonight for this matchup, so it's a nice safe space for Shane Bieber going into action tonight. So very, very excited to see it. But let me know either in the chat or in the comments below. What's your prediction for Shane Bieber? Not just for this game, but for long term. Like where do you view Shane Bieber fitting in for the Blue Jays down the stretch and potentially into the playoffs? That is the Blue Jays talk. I do just quickly want to note how bad that was last night for the New York Yankees as they fall to the Boston Red Sox. And again, it's the same old issues coming up. It's a throw to second base on a potential double play that, okay, it gets there. And then the best comment I saw about this was Jazz Chisholm threw that ball further than he hit any in the home run derby when he airmails it over first base. You have an attempted steal at second, and the throw from the catcher goes into center field. You are having all these issues still coming up for the New York Yankees. And it is wild to me that they went out, aggressively made the moves that they did at the trade deadline. And look, they have played better baseball. You know, like, it looked horrendous in that series against the Marlins, where it all went south against them. And all the guys who they just traded for, the relievers and the dude who they put in right field, all screwed up in the first game. But since then, they have been playing better. But every time that spotlight seems to be on them, it flusters them. And it's so un-Yankee-like. And I think it was Dontrell Willis yesterday because the game was on Fox. It was the D train just pointing out like, hey, when are we just going to believe that's what this team is? And I think you kind of have to now from a Yankee standpoint. And for the Red Sox, I keep thinking that they're just going to fade away because that's kind of what they've done this year. They'll go on these incredible runs and it's like, man, the Red Sox, hottest team in baseball. And then you'll just, every time you look at the standings for like a 6-8 week stretch, oh, they're 4-6 in their last 10. Oh, it's 4-6 in their last 10. And then they'll win 15 games in a row again. And then, oh, wow, yeah, 3-7, 4-6, oh, 5-5. You know, like they're just kind of there a lot. And I kind of felt like this was what that was going to be. They lose a couple of games at the end of their series against Baltimore. It's okay. This team just isn't isn't what we thought they were going to be, that they aren't as much of a threat. And they came out last night and they put it on the Yankees. And it's similar to the Blue Jays, but a little bit different. I think once they recognized where they had the Yankees, they really were able to take advantage, being more aggressive on the basis. If I am a team in baseball, I'm running on everything. I am putting pressure on their catcher with stolen base attempts. I am taking the extra base every opportunity I can when a ball is hit to the outfield. Now, that would be my style of baseball anyway. But I think the Red Sox, like the Blue Jays did that by just having a bunch of guys who don't strike out. And that's why I think Toronto is a really bad matchup for New York, is that this is a team that struggles defensively, and the Blue Jays are good at putting the ball in play. And the Red Sox, Cora is such a good manager. Like, I think John Schneider should win Manager of the Year, in part because, we got a little sprinkle on that. I just like to point that out. But I think Alex Cora, in terms of X's and O's, I think he's the best manager in baseball. And they recognized what they had against the Yankees and put that pressure on, running into those situations and just making the Yankees make some mistakes. So that's going to be a fascinating series the rest of the way. But the Yankees are who we thought they were. And at least Toronto and Boston, anyway, aren't letting them off the hook. So some big series coming up for the Blue Jays. It's figuring out Shane Bieber. And look, after this stretch here, where it was Pirates to start, and then Marlins, and then after this, I believe it's the Twins that they have. This stretch here, this is the time to make it up. Because after this, it gets very difficult for Toronto. So, like, series where, oh, yeah, you lost 2 or 3, but these things happen in baseball. Okay, but they can only happen once. Now you have to come out and just, out of context, this is going to sound very bad, but bludgeon the Marlins over the next few games. Because this is not a series that you should be messing around with. This is a series that you are a first place ball club. You are at home. The two teams chasing you are playing each other, so one of them is going to lose every night. Let's put some distance between yourselves and them going forward. This is a big, big stretch here for the Blue Jays and an interesting weekend series ahead for the Yankees and Red Sox. If you have more baseball takes, let me know in the live chat. And if you're watching this after the fact, let me know down in the comments section below. Like I said, where do you think Bieber's going to fit in? And are we overreacting to the issues that the New York Yankees have had when it comes to fielding and just baseball fundamentals this season? Thank you guys so much for watching these videos. A lot more still to come here on the live stream, but make sure that you hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell so you know that when so you are aware, of when we are going live here with Couch Potato Diary. I will say, in terms of the live streams that are happening on multiple different platforms, next week got quite a bit more crowded. So no live podcasts next week. I'm going to be on Sportsnet 960 out here in Calgary, Monday to Thursday, noon to 2 Mountain Time, which interferes with these because I'm supposed to be there at 11 and I like to start these around 10. I'm always late with them, and as you can it's 11:30 Mountain Time right now, so I would be late. So if we do get any streams in, it will be video game ones after I get home from those. But yeah, keep it locked again on my social media accounts to see the next time we are going live, or like I said, hit that notification bell as we just spam all the little graphic things that I have here for Couch Potato Diary. Want to get some quick hockey talk in because a oft talked about RFA has signed a deal. Plus, we had Connor D in the YouTube chat asking some hockey questions. So we did a little bit of basketball bounce around earlier this week. Let's do a bit of a hockey shoot around, pass around. That sounds bad. Let's talk hockey. The Minnesota Wild, and interesting deeds. I saw that. Don't. How dare you? Before we did the basketball bounce around, I was like, hockey pass around? That sounds weird. The hockey rim around. That sounds even worse, but might be what we call this one here today, just to see if we can get a few more of those clicks from various different audiences around the sporting world. But the Minnesota Wild, they're a team that I am endlessly fascinated by. They have one of the most talented hockey players in the NHL in Kirill Kaprizov. And now the contract situation gets a whole lot easier for them to deal with until it doesn't, when he becomes unrestricted free agent at the end of this upcoming season. So with the buyouts with Parise and Suter coming off of the books, they had some money to spend, and this was not necessarily the offseason to get that because there, as we've talked about, not a whole lot of game changers out there in free agency. But one of the interesting decisions they had to make was on Marco Rossi, who I think a lot of teams had to make an interesting decision on him. On the one hand, you have a player who is a highly thought of prospect, drafted, if I recall, relatively high, right? Like, I'm not making this up now after the fact that this was a dude who was drafted pretty well as a prospect, was he not? Of course, it's not right there. Yeah, 9th overall. What am I thinking? Kid was 9th overall pick in 2020. He was drafted just ahead of Cole Perfetti. So someone who teams had high opinions on, Marco Rossi. And so, yeah, like this is a highly touted prospect. You draft him really high. He progresses his way, and now he is on an NHL roster. And he's still just like 23, 24 years old. I definitely could have looked at that when I was just looking at his Hockey DB page. But this is a guy who, like, he checks a lot of boxes for should be a very good player in the future at the National Hockey League level. On the other hand, touch undersized, and the Minnesota Wild are in win now mode. They are in the most competitive division, I think, in the National Hockey League, in the Central Division. They have, as mentioned before, one of the most exciting players in the National Hockey League in Kirill the Thrill, and he could leave at the end of the season. And while, look, I've been to Minnesota, went as a kid, loved it. They have a fantastic mall, really fun. The ballpark seems nice, very passionate fan base, but not exactly a free agent destination, right? Like they had, last time they made a big splash in free agency, they had to overpay, and then they had to spend a lot of money and years paying for it, basically, is the best way to put that. So they are in a win now mode, and Rossi just isn't there. When they were making the push toward the playoffs and then into the postseason, at their biggest games of the season, Rossi was a fourth line center. So it's an interesting contract situation because, again, you look at it now from some other team standpoints. And we're based in Calgary. People were talking about it from a Flames standpoint. The Calgary Flames need a number one center. That has been obvious for a really long time. A really, really long time. Eras have gone by with this team needing a number one center. And then they had it for a little bit, and now they don't have it again. So you get tantalized by, again, a kid who was a top 10 pick 5 years ago and has worked his way to at least being in playoff games. But again, is he going to be that number one? And also, we have seen offer sheets, yes, but any offer sheet that this kid was going to accept was going to put you into a spot where your first round pick was going to have to be involved in the compensation for the Minnesota Wild. And there's a pretty good pot of gold at the end of the rainbow for the draft next year. And it seems like there's just a lot of really high talent, high-level talent, going into this draft. So you don't want to give those bullets away. So it felt like for Marco Rossi, he was hitting this very important contract negotiation at exactly the wrong time when it comes to his career, his development, and just the overall scale of the National Hockey League and where he fits in right now in the plans with the Minnesota Wild. So this has been a really interesting discussion around him, I felt like all offseason, and it ends today as the Minnesota Wild sign him to a 3-year contract with an average annual value of $15 million. So I think that this is basically kind of a sweet spot for this contract. It's 3 years. $5 million ain't going to kill you, especially with the salary cap going up. I think that this is a fine deal for Minnesota to sign here with Rossi. Like I said, 3 years, see what you got in this kid. And if they have to, honestly, there's a world where they have to double this, right? Like, I don't think that's the most likely outcome, but he could just hit every bit of development along the way, and all of a sudden he's a number one center. The Wild are competing for championships, and it's like, fuck, you got to keep this guy, so just sign him to whatever he wants, and you roll with it that way. Odds are he is probably due a pretty good increase when this goes to unrestricted free agency after this contract is up. But for now, like $5 million, I feel like you are kind of accepting, like, hey, there's a chance that he elevates and he's going to be paid okay for it. $5 million would be nice. But you are still baking in some, hey, if this development thing doesn't hit and he is just an undersized energy center for us in a bottom 6 role. I don't really want to be paying that guy $8 million a season for the next forever. So this is where I think a bridge deal really does make sense for the Wild and for Rossi, who now has a few years in a pretty good situation to go out and try to prove that he is worth more than this contract and worth giving up some pretty big draft capital for if teams wanted to go out and bring him in as an RFA. The other part of this, because a lot of the talks around this, because of the issues with the draft pick and everything like that, was Minnesota may want to trade this kid, because the RFA route maybe wasn't going to necessarily work because no one wants to give up their first round pick for the upcoming season. So maybe you can make a trade and it's a 27 first or something like that. This contract is entirely tradable. If they feel like there's a win now move to be made, if they want to go out and get a Rasmus Anderson and try to improve their lot in life with the Calgary Flames, Calgary can take on 3x5 real easily, and any team can. So that this doesn't hinder any type of trade talk you may have been having around this guy. So I feel like Minnesota kind of hit the sweet spot when it came to a number of these different benchmarks for this contract. Based in Calgary, so want to talk about what this means for the Calgary Flames and specifically the contract negotiation with Connor Zary, which is very surprising to me that we are at August 22nd and that deal hasn't been done. And he is another kind of an interesting spot. The difference with him and with Rossi is a couple of things. One, Rossi's a center. Zary has tried to be, but his best work so far has come as a winger. Also, Rossi, top 10 pick. Zary, the Flames were able to trade down a couple of times and still get him at 24th overall, I think. So you're not dealing necessarily with as highly thought of a prospect going in. And you also are dealing with a bit of positional issue with Zary, where the center ice spot is just more valuable in the NHL. It is. So I feel like maybe this almost hurts the value of Zary a little bit, because I would imagine they were hoping for something maybe along these lines. They might be a little rich, honestly, but I think it just kind of brings down the value of things for Zary a little bit more. I'm like Steinberg and Wes Gilbertson yesterday were talking about, or the other day, we're talking about a couple of years for Zary. I think something along the lines of 3 years like this makes a lot of sense for Calgary. Again, I think he is incredibly talented. Like Zary, I feel like from an eye test standpoint, has taken some substantial jumps each of the last 2 seasons. It's just injuries got in the way last year. And when he was playing, it wasn't as productive. Like, you could see that improvements had been made, but it wasn't translating to scoreboard improvements. And that's where this team was severely lacking. If he can get the results to play up, then great. But I think for now, the Flames are going to argue, hey, yeah, cool that you've improved. We really appreciate that. Can't stay healthy and didn't actually produce at that level. And for Zary, it's like, dude, you guys have asked me to bounce around a lot. It's not like I'm getting a ton of help out there. And also, have you seen how good I am? So it is an interesting negotiation. And I kind of think this 2-3 year window actually makes a lot of sense for both sides. For Calgary, if he's an injury-prone kid and it's not going to work at center, or it's just not going to click, and the productivity isn't ever going to match really what you're seeing on the ice, then you're not locked in on a giant contract for a third-line player. And for him, it's an opportunity where, again, kind of like Rossi, where at the end of this, you could try to really 1.5, 2x that contract going into some bigger negotiations. So that's kind of the timeline I would think, kind of like a 3x3, 3x3.5 might work. I think for someone like that, like for me, I'd want to lock him up as long as possible, but I can understand that probably doesn't work for either side right now. So those are some of the hockey discussions that are happening. As like Deed said before, we take this rim around the National Hockey League. The one more I should mention, again, it was Connor D in the YouTube chat saying Zegras to the Flyers is one of the most fascinating things I'm watching for this season. How do you think he does? Point projection. I have said before on here, I'm pretty sure we broke down the trade on here. I know I did on 960, but I wanted to here. Anyway, I'm not the biggest Zegras fan. I think that you see those memes sometimes where it's like, name this player, and one bar graph is like shooting through the roof, and the other one is like this big, and the one side is hype, and the other side is talent. I think Zegras is about as close as we get in that to the NHL right now. I do like. I think he is good. I think he is a fun player at times, but I think we've kind of plateaued on what he can be. He has had so many opportunities to break through and be the guy with the Anaheim Ducks, and they have tried. Like this isn't Chicago where it's like, oh, Tyler Bertuzzi, that's what you're putting Bedard with. Like they've brought in guys like Killorn. Troy Terry has been able to step up and take a leadership role on with this team, and whether it be injuries or just, I don't think the kid's that great. There have been some issues with him kind of reaching that next level. So honestly, I think Zegras is what he is. Now he's going to a team that honestly has less around him than the one in Anaheim did. I think he's going to be like a 60, 65 point guy. Like I don't view him as a top 6 forward on a contending team. And if he is, he's like 5th or 6th. And you have like some really solid guys ahead, and he can come in and kind of do some flashy stuff or whatever. But I'm realizing as we're talking through this, I am way more out on Trevor Zegras than I thought I was, but I'm not there with the kid. I'm just not right now. So that now officially brings an end to our rim around the National Hockey League. If you need an energy boost, look, hockey season's coming up, fantasy draft, we got some cramming to do, we're gonna have some late nights watching hockey, head over to swiftenergy.gg, use the code PKPrimetime for 25% off, and get great flavors. That's the thing, like it's not just like some of those caffeine pills that you get, but some really, really good flavors over at swiftenergy.gg, and use that code PKPrimetime for the 25% off. Wasn't necessarily thinking I would do this today, but we've had a lot of sports stuff to talk about. We've had some breaking news come in while the stream has been going on. So we're going to break the podcast up into 2 parts today. The sportsy part and the punchy part. So the sportsy part coming to an end right now on for the podcast. For live stream listener or watchers, we're going to keep on trucking into the world of cage fighting here in just a second. But for podcast listeners, that's it. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. For folks on the live stream, we're going to get to part 2 of the podcast, which is going to look at the wrestling world here in just a second. So give me a moment to pause here, if you will. And we're back with part 2 of the podcast for today. The live stream's going on. By the way, if you are listening to this in podcast form, you can get these early with the live streams on multiple different platforms. So this second part of the show is going to be focusing on the world of combat sports. We will start with the simulated variety, as it is another busy weekend in the world of professional wrestling, with Forbidden Door and Heatwave going down this weekend. Plus, we had a big one last weekend with UFC 319. What should be next for some of the big fighters coming off of that? All of that still to come on the stream and the podcast here. And as always, presented by Sea of Dead. Head over to seaofdead403.ca for the great Calgary swag, and check out swiftenergy.gg for some great flavors and an energy boost for your next gaming session or marathon sports watching day. So let's dive in, as AEW has taken a trip over the pond to walk through the Forbidden Door once again. Do I like how we got here? I don't love it. Do I think this is going to be a fantastic show? I do. Let's take a look at AEW's Forbidden Door. We can debate if the Forbidden Door concept is working, or if it's something that has maybe fallen off a little bit. Don't know where that accent came from. Fallen off a little bit. But what you can't deny is the action we're going to see Sunday afternoon on pay-per-view is gonna be awesome. So let's dive right in. Just going off of what the matches are on Wikipedia, and they have up first. I get kind of bouncing around a little bit because they have Cope and Cage as the main event, and that's not it. But up first, lights out steel cage match. Golden Lovers, Darby Allin, Hiroshi Tanahashi, and Will Ospreay taking on the Death Riders, the Young Bucks, and Gabe Kidd. This is such a mishmash of talent in this bout. Ospreay is going to get a phenomenal response. He is going to feel like a superstar. I do worry about the neck injury and coming back too quickly for a match like this, because he is not, well, yes, there's 10 other guys in there. He's not going to be, to use the racing term, he ain't going to be conserving fuel out there to try to get this one across the finish line. He is going to be totally fine if he has to drive across this thing on one wheel to get to the finish line. That's what I anticipate this being for him. And so, like, this is going to be your crazy, wild, gifable moments for AEW this weekend with all of the insane humans that are going to be in this. It's wild, like, look, this is not a disrespectful take for Hiroshi Tanahashi or anything like that, but this is definitely one of those things that's not like the other, right? Like, Omega, we've seen him in Anarchy in the Arena and all these things before. I guess Ibushi kind of, although, like, he's done the DDT stuff, like, he has done some wild things as well. Darby Allin, enough said, right? Like, he has jumped off of ladders through glass before and all of those things. Will Ospreay, you think of the bloody cage match that he had with Kyle Fletcher. The Death Riders, it go like John Moxley death match stuff, like it just kind of goes hand in hand. The Young Bucks have super kick guys with tacks on their shoes before, and Gabe Kidd, while we haven't seen him in these types of matches on this sort of a level, feels like he fits, right? He feels like he kind of fits in to that mold. Tanahashi, it feels weird to think of, oh no, and Tanahashi is going to hit the high fly flow onto a guy with tacks on the ground. So it's cool that he is in this. It is a fascinating mix, and one of the last times we're going to see him with a North American promotion, probably, as we head toward his January 4th retirement right now to take over as president of New Japan Pro Wrestling. But I think that they've treated him with the reverence that he deserves, with Mox being like, wait, they got like Hiroshi Tanahashi to just kind of drive home like this is still a dude. So I think it's going to be a fun one. I would imagine the team with Ospreay and Tanahashi on it do get the win in this spot, and there's going to be at least a few moments where people are going to be squeamish and turning away from their televisions. Cope and Cage taking on Kip Sabian and Killswitch in a special attraction tag team bout. I do think we maybe speed ran this Cope and Cage reunion a little bit, but we're obviously getting ready for All Out in Toronto, and these two guys to be on that card in somewhat of a big moment. And to get this one here out of the way, like, this is going to be, I think, a fun match. And the story, like, they have done enough with it that it makes some sense. I think you maybe could have drawn it out a little bit longer, but I understand why you didn't. And I think you were still able to get there with a relatively reasonable amount of time. I think the addition of Killswitch to this match is a really, really strong job. I think, like, Nick Wayne would have benefited from this level of a spotlight, I think, given the veterans in this match and everything like that. But Killswitch, to bring him in, it feels like an oh shit thing, which makes him feel like a bigger deal. And someone who, like, it's a weird gimmick, obviously. A luchador who's a dinosaur, right? But there's, I think, a lot of potential in that guy. So I'm interested to see how he fits with all this. I can't imagine that Cope and Cage don't get the win in this match, but I think that we're going to see Killswitch at least looking pretty good, and we'll see what we get out of Kip Sabian here. The AEW World Tag Team Championships on the line as the Hurt Syndicate defend against Brodito and FTR. We talked about it on the AEW preview that there's been a lot of talk about if the Hurt Syndicate, maybe they don't want to put FTR over, so is Brodito going to win this one? I do sometimes try to stay away from some of those things, but now they do the draw on Dynamite, and you have an incredibly talented triple threat tag team match here with the Hurt Syndicate, Brodito, and FTR. So many interesting styles clashing, and just guys who feel like they can kind of work in a lot of them. So I think that this could steal the show and it's going to be a tough show to steal given a lot of the talent on here. But I do think that it would make for an interesting story, and it makes some sense to go into Toronto, have FTR win the tag team titles here, and then you have Cope and Cage go for the tag team championships out in Toronto. Like you have that ready-made story of Adam Copeland against FTR, give them the belts, add another layer onto it. Now, you could have them come out and cost FTR the titles, because that is something that doesn't necessarily need a championship attached to it. But my pick is going to be FTR so that they can wrestle Cope and Cage for the championships in Toronto. And then if Hurt Syndicate want to get them back after against those guys and just create a few different programs, I think you could do that for sure. Unified Championship on the line. Okada against Swerve Strickland. This match is going to be awesome. We have now seen serious Okada. I think that how they have built this feud has been very effective for it being a bit of a quicker one, but I think the intensity and the seriousness that both guys have brought into this feud has added something pretty substantial to it. I do think it is a little bit quick to take it off of Okada after beating Omega in that big match at All In. I think one of the things that AEW needs to do in this next kind of build up here for All In is like for next year, like in their kind of new year for wrestling. We're not quite at the point where it feels like the way it does with WWE, where the Raw after WrestleMania is like New Year's Day. But still, for this like kind of next year of AEW's cycle, I think one of the big things is getting Okada back to being a main event guy. And that match at All In did a lot to do that for sure. And the build up with Kenny did a lot for that, absolutely. I think losing to Swerve here, while Swerve is awesome, I think it does kind of slow that up a little bit. And Swerve is set. Swerve right now, I think, can afford a loss and still be fine given the character and everything like that. You don't want to abuse that, but I think he can afford it. With Okada, I feel like we're still not all the way there. It hasn't clicked as a main eventer with AEW. The match quality on some of the TV matches hasn't been there. The quality of feuds, the storytelling, he got caught up in that Young Bucks thing and the EVP thing, and I think that held him back. We are getting serious Okada again. I think losing here would be a mistake, and so that's why I think Okada retains the unified, horrible name, unified championship. AEW Women's World Championship on the line as Timeless Toni Storm defends her belt against Athena, who is cashing in her Casino Gauntlet contract. I am of two minds of this, because on the one hand, the Timeless Toni Storm character is the best character in pro wrestling right now, and it's not particularly close. So keeping the title on her makes all the sense in the world because she's great. And it feels like you just came off of this huge build with her and Mercedes, and she still got the win there. And then to just rush and do the title change a month after, it just feels like, oh, okay, like this hasn't felt like it's built up to the point where this feels like it should be the time for Toni Storm to lose. On the other hand, Toni Storm is another one that if she loses the championship, I don't think it hurts her that much. And Athena, you were coming off of this big win streak sort of a thing in Ring of Honor, and now throwing her right into the title mix. I worry that she just becomes one of the other women if she loses this match. So I think that there is a real world where Athena comes in and wins this championship and continues to build up. Because right now, like, Toni Storm, it's an amazing character, and you can do this with anyone. But they have had a bit of a lack of main event level stars on the women's side. A lot of it is just a lack of utilization. We talked about this after the gauntlet that Athena won. You see, there's a lot of talent there. They just haven't elevated enough of it into this main event vortex with Toni Storm just yet. And I understand she is a unique character and it takes a unique type to be able to fit with her. But I think that if you have Athena lose here, the main event scene for the women's division right now is Toni Storm, Mercedes Moné, and that's it. So I think this is one where you need to elevate Athena. So it feels maybe a little rushed, and a lot of the talk coming off of Dynamite wasn't, hey, Athena, Toni Storm, let's go. It was Toni Storm and the sniffing of Mercedes Moné and that whole thing. So this is one where it doesn't feel like maybe a hot enough feud to have Toni lose it, but I think maybe you could tell a thing where Toni was still focused on Mercedes, took her eye off the ball, and Athena's too good for that. And now she is the women's champion. So I think you could do that one for sure. TBS Championship on the line. Mercedes Moné defending against Alex Windsor, Persephone from CMLL, and Bozilla representing Stardom here. It's cool. This is a fun sort of a thing. But again, Stardom has lost quite a bit of talent over the last little while, whether it is performers that have gone on to Marigold or Mina Shirakawa, Mariah May on their way over to AEW and then NXT. So this doesn't have the dream match feel that you would think with champion against AEW, CMLL, Stardom. This doesn't have that kind of oh damn, here we go, dream match thing. And so because of that, I think we can count Bozilla and Persephone just out on this one, right? So I think what it comes down to is Alex Windsor and Mercedes Moné. And with that, the Windsor build has been interesting to me because they brought her in with a little bit of hype and a little bit okay, that this is someone you need to be preparing for and getting ready for. And then they brought her in and she has been in this kind of the TBS vortex area, whatever. But it hasn't felt it felt like they thought we're going to do a couple vignettes and hype her up a little bit. She's going to get a big moment at All In. Box checked, we're good, and off we go. And they haven't really followed up, I feel in the necessary ways with her to kind of drive this star thing home a little bit. And so again, it's kind of like the Athena thing where I worry that a loss in this match, even if she's not the one taking the pin, I worry that a loss in this match just kind of puts her in as a face in the crowd in this division. And I think she can be a little bit more than that. So I do wonder if you use the stipulation to your advantage and have Windsor pin Persephone or Bozilla, and she wins the TBS championship, and Mercedes didn't have to be pinned to lose it. So you have now built up Windsor as, again, someone who can be a star in this division. Mercedes Moné doesn't lose a whole lot, and you have now established a couple of performers at a higher level. If Mercedes just got the win, wouldn't be surprised. She is the belt collector, all these things right now. But I wonder if you are looking to elevate someone, if this isn't an easy spot to be able to do that with an Alex Windsor. TNT Championship on the line. Kyle Fletcher against Hiromu Takahashi. This match is going to be insane. The result of it is not in doubt for 1 second. I don't think there is any way that, we said this in the look ahead, I don't think there's any way that Kyle Fletcher stabbed Dustin Rhodes in the knee to lose the belt to Hiromu Takahashi a few weeks later. So the match is going to be bonkers. It's going to be insane. I cannot wait to see what this match looks like. But at the end, Kyle Fletcher is getting his hand raised, and rightfully so, as he is the next project in the men's division over on AEW. IWGP World Title on the line as Zack Sabre Jr. defends against Nigel McGuinness. The people who are looking for a youth movement in New Japan, I think, would get a little upset if it was Nigel McGuinness who took the belt off of Zack Sabre Jr. So again, this is another one where the result is not in doubt. It is more just, it's going to be cool to see in England Nigel McGuinness against Zack Sabre Jr. And to be able to get this last little dream run out of Nigel. And I like that they put him in the Daniel Garcia tag team matches, all of that, to kind of get him ready for this moment. So it's not just you're thrown in after a few months off. Let him get that ring rust out of the way and get ready for what should be a fast-paced, highly technical matchup on Sunday against Zack Sabre Jr. But again, ZSJ is coming away with the WIN, I think, for sure. And that brings us to the main event. It is the AEW World Championship on the line as Hangman Adam Page defends against MJF. We said in the preview of Dynamite that it kind of felt like they were setting something up where MJF was going to weasel his way back into not using that contract for this, and that threat was of attempted murder on Mark Briscoe, but that they were able to use it, so some of those storyline things that I was potentially excited about might be able to creep their way back in with this match. I still think, it is interesting because these guys have the potential to be the Rock Austin of AEW. Like, I think that these, like, Hangman has found another level with this character. He has found another level with the connection with the audience with this character. He is just that good. MJF, it goes without saying, right? Like, that this guy is the best heel in the business right now. And so it feels too soon to take the belt off of Hangman Adam Page after you just made him kind of the face of the franchise, beating Jon Moxley again by attempted murder at All In, and being able to have him kind of ride into this new era of AEW, only to lose the belt a month later against MJF. It feels too soon for that. So I think having the out of MJF still having the contract and still being able to do this, I think makes it a little bit easier. I think Hangman does get the win. I would be a little surprised if MJF got it, but you could convince me that is the right move just because of how good a performer he is and just how serious he can get in this role. But yeah, I think that these two guys have unlimited potential when it comes to what kind of rivalry they can have with AEW. And I think the match is going to be absolute brilliance on Sunday. So like we said that about a lot of these matches on this show. I'm not going to go too far into the Forbidden Door thing again. We talked about it in the look ahead at the beginning of the week. New Japan is just, it's a cold product right now. The attendance figures were not great for the G1. The reaction off the G1 wasn't awesome either. You certainly have your New Japan defenders, and different people like what different people like. But this is not the product that it was when AEW started this whole thing with Forbidden Door and doing all of this. Like, they're just not at the level that they were at that particular time. So this doesn't feel like it's at that level. And as we mentioned before, like it feels like an AEW pay-per-view with a couple of New Japan throw-ins just cuz. So that's a little unfortunate, and we would want a bit more of a growing of this relationship going forward. But for now, it's still going to be an awesome show. Whatever you want to call it, wherever you want to put it, this is going to be an amazing wrestling show coming up on Sunday on pay-per-view. Again, want to remind you guys, if you're watching this live stream, we're just about a couple hours into this now. Look, I love covering a lot of different things, and I feel passionate about talking about a lot of it, but I understand not everyone's like me. Not everyone is going to bounce around from a hockey conversation, an NFL conversation, a Blue Jays one, and then off into the wrestling world. So for the wrestling fans, there is a podcast just for you. It is called Living Room Lariat. It is available wherever you get your podcasts. That, of course, again, is on Spotify as well as on Apple Podcasts. It is all the wrestling talk from here. We have a couple bonus segments that get thrown in there as well that you're not going to get on the regular Couch Potato Diary. So if you're a wrestling fan and you just want the wrestling talk, it is over on on Living Room Lariat from Couch Potato Diary. Also, if you want some of the other stuff, like if we're doing wrestling right now, if you're here because of the UFC, hey, thank you. But also on YouTube, Daily Motion as well, we have all the playlists broken down, so you can get all the content from all those sports all in one very convenient spot. So check all of those out on the Couch Potato Diary YouTube and Daily Motion pages. Let's now move into the world of NXT. As AEW goes through the Forbidden Door, WWE is trying to turn up the heat with this tribute to an old ECW pay-per-view, NXT Heatwave. I don't think they've been successful in heating this one up, and a lot of people just want to wave goodbye to it, but it's still happening this weekend, so we're still talking about it. Let's run through NXT's Heatwave. NXT is back with another PLE coming up here on the weekend as they look to counterprogram AEW's Forbidden Door with Heatwave. And I will say at the beginning of the week, we did the look ahead to this, and I was rather negative on it. And I don't think that's going to change. But let's run through the preview here. Jordan Grace against Blake Monroe in a singles match. This has been a bit of a botched feud to begin with Blake Monroe. They got her in right away as they needed to do this big introduction with her and all of that. And this is the second time in a row that they have done that. They've done the big debut. It got a big whatever. Oh my God, Tony dropped the ball. Tony sucks, all those different things. And then they haven't followed up very effectively. Blake Monroe came in, kind of felt like a heel, then went over to the babyface side. All the heels beat her up, and then she turned on the babyface who she teamed with against the heel, I guess, to go with the heels that just beat her up. And then, to counter all of that, why? Why, Blake, would you do that? Well, because Jordynne Grace 15 years ago was less attractive as a human by some traditional standards. Okay? Like, this hasn't worked. And they have tried to kind of pivot it a little bit with the promo they did on Tuesday with Blake Monroe just saying, like, you're not a star. Like, they were, a lot of the focus was on the looks initially. They kind of pivoted away from that, and it was just the insecurities of Jordynne Grace, and that's why she's not a star, with a lot of wink, wink, nudge, nudge, you know what I mean, to what a lot of that is. It is not a good story. It is not a good introduction to the Blake Monroe character. It has done, I think, significant damage to the Blake Monroe character in WWE and in NXT. This was a performer that was coming off of one of the stories of the year with her and Timeless Toni Storm. And to get that buzz, and now coming out of it, that you only get one first impression. And now most people, when talking about Blake Monroe, are talking about, well, I guess a lot of that was Toni Storm then, wasn't it? Because this just hasn't hit in any way at all. From a match standpoint, I'm not expecting brilliance. I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be a good match. I think in the end, like, you have to give Jordynne Grace a win after all of those things that Blake Monroe said. You have to let Jordynne Grace now come out and get her comeuppance on Sunday on Netflix for those of us here internationally. I don't see how you have Jordynne Grace lose this. I had said before, like, this felt like the time. Evolution, it's a big platform. Let Jordynne Grace get her win and take over as the face of NXT, because it felt like she was a little bit lost in the sauce with Stephanie Vaquer and with Julia, and when all those performers came in all at once, and then they all left all at once. JC Jane gets her moment with the title. Okay, now Jordynne Grace gets to go in and take it from her. They didn't do that. And so because of that, I was a little bit like, oh, I don't know. You get this, like, frustrated, more fiery character out of Jordynne Grace, and then to try to get more out of that, really amp up the personal stuff with Blake Monroe, you can kind of see where they were thinking. I think the execution has been bad, and I appreciate Jordynne Grace coming out and showing that vulnerability on Tuesday, but now I think we need to get back to, I am a furious ass kicker, and I am the most dominant performer in this division right now. So we need some rehab on both of them is needed, but Jordynne Grace, I think, needs it right now. So I pick her to get the win. Up next, it is Hank and Tank taking on two members of Dark State for the Tag Team Championships. I mentioned before in the look ahead, the Dark State thing has just not clicked with me. They brought them in, it made a real big impact, and then they just kind of went away. And then they lost to a couple of teams over on TNA and not high-level ones. And now they're coming back here. And the way to differentiate one from the other is that one guy makes a lot of innuendos that he's not aware that he's making. It's not clicking for me at this particular time. It's like, to call it Timu Shield is an insult to Timu. This is not a great group right now. So Hank and Tank, they've been a lot of fun, and they've added a bit of personality to this, and I think there's some potential there. I don't see them dropping the tag team titles here to Dark State. Dark State is not close to being ready for that at this particular time. Triple threat match for the TNA Knockouts Championship. JC Jane against Masha Slamovich against Ash by Elegance. You had Masha as the special guest referee for the 6-woman tag on NXT from Philadelphia on Tuesday. Kind of adding another layer to this. It looks like it is obviously set up to just get the belt off of JC Jane, get it onto Slamovich or Elegance, whoever you want, and just, we had the moment coming out of Slammiversary, oh man, all the belts are with NXT, this, that, and the other thing. this feels like it's set up to take it away from JC Jane. Like it is almost telegraphing it too much, where I wonder if Jane does end up getting the win here, because it feels so obvious for her to not. She cannot take the pin, and it's just for the TNA championship, so it's not even a risk of, oh, she had to defend both belts in one night or anything like that, or both belts on the line in one match, and now the NXT Women's Championship is over on TNA, and heaven forbid. So it feels so obvious that she's not going to win that I almost wonder if she's going to. I'm not there. I'm not going to do that. I think that they get Ash by elegance, the win on this one. I felt like if Masha was going to win this and all we were doing was just having JC Jane hold it for one kind of tour and Masha gets it right back, then this kind of feels weird. So I'm just going to say, for variety's sake, I'm going to say the former Dana Brooke comes away with the TNA Knockouts Championship. Up next, Jada Parker, Kalani Jordan, and Lola Vice in a triple threat match to determine the number one contender for the NXT Women's Championship. Lola Vice getting a moment on Triple Mania the other day. Kalani Jordan has been kind of stuck in this little tweener thing for a little bit. I think that the money with her is more on the babyface side, but again, this is NXT, it's developmental. We have talked before about the value of utilizing your talent in both the babyface and heel directions, so that when they get to the main roster, it's not Tiffany Stratton and she's 6-8 months into a title run and still hasn't exactly figured out how to be an effective babyface yet. So to use her in the heel way, I think it makes some sense. Jada Parker, again, some things have been said, but from a look and an in-ring standpoint and just all the presentation, she is right there as well. And so this is one I could see all three of them coming away with the victory in this one. And I think all three of them are at that championship level. And so I am happy that we are now elevating some talent in the NXT women's division. We've been talking for a long time about how that women's division is the most the most stacked women's division in professional wrestling right now. And it feels like a lot of them have just been like North American title picture, whatever, for a little while now. Now it's the time to elevate with Julia and with Stephanie Vaquer out of the picture. All three of these are very ready for that level of a move. And I think Kalani Jordan, to me, makes the most sense right now. I think Jada Parker is the closest to being main roster ready at this particular time, but I think Kalani Jordan, given that JC Jane is the champion, I think that she is ready for this opportunity to move up and be in that main event picture for NXT's women's division. A mixed tag team match with Chelsea Green and Ethan Page against Tyra May Steele and Tavion Heights. They did a peace treaty attempt on Tuesday. Chelsea Green and Ethan Page are endlessly entertaining. They are, it is a perfect match with how they all just work as a team. And you can see a lot of the character stuff that Ethan Page worked on in TNA. A lot of that starting to show through in this group with Chelsea Green and the Secret Hervis. For Tyra May Steele and Tavion Heights, a lot of talk about their Olympic background and the wrestling and everything like that. I think it would be a bit of a disservice to have them lose right now. You don't want to beat Ethan Page and Chelsea Green like a drum, but these are two characters that can afford a loss, and I feel like you have built up too much in Tyra May Steele and Tavion Heights to just have them now lose in this one. I'm sure there could be some nefarious ways that could get the two Canadians a dub in this particular bout, but I think you can build up Tavion Heights into a challenger for Ethan Page. Tyra May Steele, we're working on things. There's obviously some growth that needs to be done, but there's obviously a resume that adds some legitimacy very quickly to her. So I think that there is an opportunity to do quite a bit with them, and I think more of that comes if the team of Steele and Heights end up getting the win. And that brings us to the main event. I was mistaken on Monday when I said, oh, look, it's a triple threat of Obafemi, Javon Evans, and Trick Williams. Where have we seen that before? I guess I misread Wikipedia where maybe it said it said or, and I thought it said versus or whatever. But it is Obafemi against Javon Evans for the NXT Championship. This is where NXT becomes a little bit difficult to predict. Because if this is just a main roster show, Obafemi wins this. Oba is the star right now. Javon is getting there for sure, but I don't know if he's quite at that level just yet. That being said, Oba's the star. He is main roster ready. He has been locked in dead 100% ringer, main roster star, and main roster ready for a while now. And now they have built up Javon Evans to be a legitimate main eventer on this show. You get, again, the meme GIF highlight that you can do on Tuesday where Trick Williams just sends him flying. The dude is bouncy. We all know this. But now that they have started to build it back up again, where he had a couple of feuds that didn't necessarily go his way, but you get the Undertaker endorsement. You get him getting a win over the TNA champion, Trick Williams, and getting this opportunity against Obafemi on a PLE. I think the time could be right for a title change. So my pick is going to be Javon Evans gets the win over Obafemi for the NXT championship, and we see Oba up on the main roster very, very soon. So that is, those are my predictions for NXT Heatwave. Overall, again, it is a PLE that has been made to counter-program AEW. It feels like an elevated Tuesday television show, not a PLE. So, again, we can get into larger discussions about WWE doing this sort of a thing, but right now, this is what the strategy is. So, am I looking forward to this show? Not particularly. Like on my notes, I have it stacked up so that like the AEW show is ahead, and then it lists down into the NXT stuff, and that is basically the order of excitement level I have for these matches coming up on Sunday. But I still think there's at least enough interesting that it's not just going to be like Great American Bash was just a straight skip for me, but there's going to be at least enough interesting on this show that you can kind of get into it and see where they go coming out of a couple of these matches anyway. So that's your ringing endorsement for NXT. It's like, it'll be watchable and it might be interesting. So that's the ringing endorsement we have for NXT. Let's move into the world of the Ultimate Fighting Championship as we get ready for the UFC in Shanghai this weekend. Last weekend brought us a lot of intriguing storylines, with UFC 319 presenting us with a new champion and a couple new interesting challengers. So, where should everyone go from here? Let's look at the fights to make coming out of UFC 319. UFC 319 certainly gave us a lot to discuss, and now the question goes to what's next. As we get ready for another pay-per-view cycle, we get ready for another Ultimate Fight Night here. A lot of interesting next paths, I think, for some of these fighters. So, where should we go with these bouts? Let's start at the top and work our way down. Khamzat Chimaev, he is the new middleweight champion of the world, and there have been some times where a lazier broadcaster than I would be able to, or would go out and try to see if, okay, you know what? Immediate rematch. That's what we're going with. We're just going to go there and it's going to be nice, easy peasy. And that will be that. You don't get that with Dricus du Plessis. He got punked in just an absolute ass kicking way. So a new challenger should emerge. And I have a couple. And it's not just, the winner of this bout or whatever. Talking with Mike Johnston of Sportsnet about the UFC card in Vancouver over in October, Renier de Ridder against Anthony Hernandez happening in Vancouver. It feels like a big fight, but you're also getting Nasruddin Imavov against Chal Barallo coming up in a couple of weeks out in France. So, like, all four fighters, I think, in that kind of thing have an opportunity to fight for a championship. And so this kind of feels like an opportunity not just for okay, well, we're going to do a tournament and it's going to be couple wins, these two guys win, you fight each other, and now number one contender. Instead, I think this is going to be, and MMA purists may get frustrated by this, but I think that this is going to be whichever one of them, like Crash just showed in the GIF there, whichever one of them takes the biggest bite out of their win is going to get the next title shot. So for me, Khamzat's next challenger is either Renier de Ridder or Nasruddin Imavov. I feel like if Barallo or Hernandez wins, they are still a win away from getting that title opportunity. But now look, if it's both Barallo and Hernandez who win, then I think you just have to, again, see whichever one, like Jameis Winston with Jackson Dart, takes the biggest bite out of that dub, they get the win. But for right now, Ranier de Ritter or Nasruddin Imavov, I feel like they are both kind of the A sides of their fights that are coming up on various fight nights across the world over the next little while. And they both have interesting styles that I think would present a unique challenge for Khamzat Chimaev with again, the high level of grappling that they can produce while still being good on the feet as well. So those are who I would say is next for Khamzat Chimaev. For Dricus du Plessis, I have Chal Baralo, where I think Baralo comes in and even if he beats Imavov out in Paris, it's Paris, right? Either way, in France, I don't think that puts him in line for a championship unless he goes out there and just like basically is the Khamzat to Imavov's du Plessis, then maybe he gets that title shot. But I still feel like Baralo himself is one fight away, and a win in that spot puts him there against Dricus du Plessis. I think that makes the most sense. And even if he loses, then you have two challengers coming off of a loss, getting into a very important fight for both of them. So I think win or lose, Baralo's next fight should be against Dricus du Plessis. Crash Andrews in the chat. Let's try something new. Make it a three-way dance elimination style. Look, I'm sure you can find triple threat MMA on the internet. Russia be trying some stuff, right? Like they've had the tag team ones, they've done MMA basketball and all of that. So I'm sure there's triple threat MMA out there somewhere. But yes, no, if you just wanted to a fatal four-way one where it's all, I mean, you probably don't want to call a actual legitimate fight a fatal four-way. So a four corners match for the number one contender for the middleweight championship. Just roll with it there. On to Lerone Murphy, who we did the stock watch earlier this week. His stock, I think, is on the way up, and it goes all the way up into a title shot. I know that the UFC rankings only have him, I think, at number 3 or 4 in the featherweight division. I don't care. Lerone Murphy, congratulations, sir. You're getting your title shot against Alex Volkanovski, coming off of a gigantic win over Aaron Pico. We've said for a while, skilled fighter, just needs his opportunity to go out and shine and make that big splash. Well, he did that in spades. So now he gets his championship opportunity. For Aaron Pico, it's an unfortunate setback because I thought he looked good. The pressure, the hand speed, all of it was effective and good. He then just got caught with an epic highlight that's going to stick with him for a while. So what's next for him? I think what's next is what was supposed to happen on Saturday. Movsar Evloev is, I think, what should be next for Aaron Pico. That it's what he was training for before. It is someone who is a high level in the division, but still feels like they're a win away from a fight against Alex Volkanovski, and it allows Pico an opportunity to either get right back on track or we really see where this guy is at in the featherweight division, and maybe he shouldn't be up at the top of it. But either way, I think it's a fight that makes a whole lot of sense. Crash, once again in the chat on Twitch. Those 5-on-5 fights are bonkers. You're damn right they are. They are nuts out there. Like just all of those ones that you see. They do, like, the actual, like, phone booth fighting that they have is kind of insane. There was the one where it was two guys in a car, and like you have to get your seatbelt unbuckled first, or you have to, the way you win is to be able to get your seatbelt unbuckled and to get out of the car. Like it's very pro wrestling in that, but they try some stuff over there. That is that's for sure. And the best we can do over here is, oh well, let's slap guys hard. So I appreciate the creativity that they have, albeit at great risk to the health of guys. I wonder, I've actually thought about this before. You see some of the crazy shit that they put on there, right? Like the 5-on-5 fights, the elimination tag team matches, and things like that. I wonder if any high-level guys actually come out of that. You know, like, are we going to get to a point where there's someone challenging and the pre-fight thing with John Anik and setting it up where this man got his start in convertible fighting in Russia, where he was able to get his seatbelt off the quickest and escape the car. And from there, he was able to walk out of the convertible and into the octagon, where he walks in for this championship opportunity tonight. You know, like, Has someone gone from the wrestling fighting in MMA like a knight and ridden that now to the Ultimate Fighting Championship? I would be fascinating. Like, what's the highest level someone who has fought in one of the gimmick fights over there has eventually found their way to? Crash again. I'd rather watch an unfair MMA fight over an AEW deathmatch. Fair, yeah. There's no needles going through mouths and stuff like that in MMA, at least yet. Anyway, and Kimbo is one of the only ones I can think of. Yeah, just going from just straight street fighting into that. I saw the clip the other day of him. The start of things on the Ultimate Fighter on that season 10 that it was. It's like, man, I know the Ultimate Fighter isn't what it used to be. I miss it. I want it to be what it used to be. Like, I loved those first seasons. Maybe that's a thing we can do next summer or at a bit of a downtime. Let's just go back and recap we're at like 33 seasons now. Every season of the Ultimate Fighter. Let's just go back and see, when did this fall off, and has it fallen off? Is it still pretty good? Just maybe not with the level of guys that we are talking about. But you're right. The morale in the gym dropped when he walked in the door of Tough. I remember watching that. We'll get to the other fight announcements here in a second, but now we're just on tangent. I remember watching that, and they're talking all this stuff up. We got one more guy, like, he's as famous as all these different things. And Roy Nelson's like, I thought they were talking about me. Because he was coming from, it's not, like, it wasn't PFL, because it wasn't a thing yet. I don't think World Series of Fighting. It was like a Bodog fight or something along those lines. Like, it wasn't like the Strikeforce heavyweight champ, but it was kind of the next thing down from that he was coming in on. So he came in with like an actual combat sports resume. And so when Dana was hyping up Kimbo, Roy Nelson, who in every way, shape, or form is the opposite of Kimbo Slice, was saying like, oh yeah, I thought they were talking about me. So a very unique season, that one. And also, I'll try to find it later, but there's a picture of me with an alumni of that season, Matt Mitrione, Meathead. He was at the fight card that I went to in Montreal, UFC 113. And I was a fan covering it then, or not covering it then, just going to watch it. And I was like, hey, can we do like the face-off thing for a picture? And he's like, yeah, okay, whatever. And just kind of stands there, and I'm doing the square off, and he's like, oh, you want to do that? And he gets like this close to my face and just snarls, and it's just like this big like thing. I was like, oh my god. Oh, like I actually, if he would have flinched, I would have peed myself. I thought he was actually going to just like use me as a tune-up to get ready for his fight. I believe, ironically, actually against Kimbo, because I went to the Kimbo after party after that. But anyway, fun times to be had with all of that. Roy, as accomplished as he was, felt like he was fighting and winning about his weight class. That's probably fair. It wasn't. I wasn't familiar with his game until he crucified Kimbo. Yeah, that was. Like, I get reality TV, oh no, it's unscripted. We probably could have scripted a little bit, because that was as smothering as it got. But then credit to Kimbo for coming in and doing a little bit more, having some fun with Houston Alexander, and a little bit more in the octagon before the Data 5000 fight and all of that. Back to the fights to make coming out of UFC 319. We have Carlos Paredes, who, again, had the first spinning back elbow knockout of the night with his victory over Jeff Neal. He called out Leon Edwards after the fight. Give my man Leon Edwards after that fight. Paredes, again, showed it's not just the spinning back elbow. There is a creativity, there is a high level of violence, and a high level of technique when it comes to his striking. You can say a lot of that about Leon Edwards. So let's put them together and let's see what happens. Jeff Neal, if he were to fight again, it feels cruel. You give him Gilbert Burns. And it's a couple of guys who have lost a few in a row, who are still inexplicably hanging on in the back of the rankings in the top 15. And it's basically a loser leaves town fight. And it feels cruel to do that. There are fights that are that way anyway. But I think right now it's just, okay, we can't have both these guys doing this as high level names, but the production isn't meeting it at this point. Let's clear it out. And so that it feels cruel, but that would be the fight that I would make. And then the last one here, because Jared Cannonier, I don't really have anything for him. But MVP, I go Robert Whittaker. And again, maybe it feels a little bit cruel for Whittaker, but MVP just put on a great striking performance against Jared Cannonier. Let's put him in there with a great striker now in Robert Whittaker and see really what level MVP is at. And so either way, like, I love Robert Whittaker, appreciate his career. He has taken a step back, though, is my perception. Anyway, if he hasn't, then he can beat MVP and work his way back potentially toward another championship opportunity, or at least close to it, right? Like he can get back onto that path. A loss here, and it's like, okay, it's not happening for you anymore, my guy, right? And for MVP, we're hyped about this guy. We're really excited. What level is he at? Because if he is working his way up toward a championship fight, Robert Whittaker's the guy he should beat. And so are you just like fun karate stance, Counter-Strike guy, or are we talking about championship level UFC fighter here? I believe the latter, personally, and I think a fight against Robert Whittaker helps you prove that. So that's what I would do in that situation. But anyway, those are the fights that I would make for UFC 319. And that is going to do it for the show. Thank you guys so much for hanging out today. If you've been here for the whole 2 hours and 15 minutes of the live stream, you guys are the best. Thank you so much for all of that. Like I said before, no live podcasts next week because I'm going to be back on 960 from noon to 2. Out here in Calgary on the radio, Monday to Thursday, and then Friday I have some other work commitments, and then I'm leaving. So going out to Saskatchewan for the weekend. So there's there's a lot going on with me. So no live podcast next week. I will try to get some live video game streams on here because I love it. Like I love chatting with you guys. I love doing all of this stuff. It is just, quite frankly, financially, need to do the other stuff too. So would love to just be able to do these Monday to Friday, and that's the gig, but that's not where we are at right now. And, I like getting on Sportsnet 960 and still talking on that platform, and the stuff I get to do Friday is going to be really, really cool, and I can't wait to tell you guys about it. But yes, for now, the schedule has to kind of bounce over the place. So, let's just keep it locked on my socials, and we'll have some fun wherever we are at. Crash, thank you so much for popping in today. Great chatting with you as always. I will say hi to Patty as well. I will have fun at Stamps Riders. If you guys are at the game, I'm going to be big white dude in a Rider jersey. Can't miss me. Well, I will stand out, I promise. But yeah, if you happen to notice, come by and say hi. And otherwise, keep it locked on my socials, and we'll talk to you guys again sometime soon. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.